The Delta One suite was announced back in 2016 and it was marketed as the world's first all-suite business class. They released the initial version on the A350 and it consisted of a customized version of the Vantage XL seat, which is a seat used by several other airlines like SAS. Then in 2019, Delta rolled out with the A330-900, which came with 29 fully enclosed suites and some upgrades like memory foam cushions and a new wireless in-flight entertainment system. The A330 has been used on long-haul flights like Seattle to Shanghai, but you can also sometimes catch it on routes from Hawaii, which is what we did in this case. Our journey started with a short island hop from the Big Island over to Oahu on Hawaiian Airlines. As soon as we arrived at the airport, we made our way to the baggage claim, picked up our bag, and then proceeded to get ready to check in once again, but this time with Delta. We made our way through what felt like a bit of a ghost town of an airport and eventually arrived at the check-in area for Delta, which was on the other side of the airport. We bought this particular flight with cash since we found rates for under $800, which turned out to be a really good deal considering that lots of the standard recliner options were going for much more than that on this route. We hopped on this booking and earned about 4,000 Delta miles in the process, along with 5x Amex membership rewards on the flight with the Platinum card. By the way, if you want help managing and optimizing your credit cards, be sure to check out our free app, Wallet Flow. It'll help you keep track of your perks and bonus categories and even your eligibility for some of the most rewarding credit cards. Admittedly, this route from H&L to Seattle is a pretty short flight to experience a lie-flat product on, since it only has a flight time of under 6 hours. On these medium haul flights, I go straight into watching a movie, experience the dining, take a short nap, and then the flight is pretty much over. But it's still fun and a long enough flight to get a feel for the product, so I was happy to make this booking. After going through security, we then arrived at the Delta Sky Club at H&L, which we had access to with our Platinum card. But once again, we ran into a timing issue as we were trying to access the lounge more than 3 hours prior to our flight. Unfortunately, there was no reasoning with the agents at the front desk to get access, so we had to find a way to kill some time, which we did by heading over to the food court. After admiring the sunset for a little bit, we finally made our way back to the lounge and were able to get in. The Sky Club lounge at H&L is pretty compact and a bit dated, but they really did deliver in terms of food quality and service. I also appreciated some of the nice little touches they made, like bringing around a cart with cannolis and some spiked tea, and the free postcards you could send out to friends and family, which we took advantage of. We relaxed in the lounge for a couple of hours and then made our way over to the boarding area where we lined up in front of the line. It's an interesting boarding area with the men's bathroom directly adjacent to the boarding gate, which is something I don't think I've really seen before, but hey, I guess it's nice to have that if you need to go. As soon as we entered the A330 Delta One cabin, I was really impressed by the look and feel of the cabin. It's a relatively simplistic design, but the white suites contrasted with the patterned accents and navy seats just really looked nice to me. The aisles did look a bit narrow, and I especially noticed this when I was trying to get photos during boarding. I made my way to my bulkhead seat 1A, which I had been looking forward to for quite a while, and my immediate impression was that this seat looks really nice. I've always been a fan of Delta's branded seat design. Something about the patterns and colors that they use just makes their seats pop in a way that I've really come to appreciate, and that was also the case with the Delta One suite. When we arrived, the bedding and pillows were packed in a cloth casing, which always feels good. There's something about tearing open plastic bedding packaging that just doesn't feel nearly as appealing. Now, they did not provide a mattress pad, and they also did not issue the Someone Somewhere Amenity Kits, which seem to be standard on flights between Hawaii and the Western US, as we didn't receive Amenity Kits on Hawaiian Airlines or American Airlines when flying on these routes. And I know it's a pretty short flight from Hawaii to some of the destinations in the West, but 6 hours is within range for amenity kits for some other airlines, so I kind of wish that some airlines would issue something, especially for a red-eye flight. But enough about that, let's talk about the seat. You'll have two separate areas where you'll find your seat controls. The first is a touch panel with a few different settings you can change with a click of a button. I like that they had a separate setting for relax and lounge, along with the standard controls you often find for the upright and lie flat positions. You can also activate the Do Not Disturb sign, turn off your feature light, control sweep brightness, and play around with moving specific parts of your seat. I found the buttons to be very responsive on my seat, so making quick fine-tune adjustments was never an issue. Next to the control panel, you'll find two USB ports and a 110-volt outlet along with a two-prong headphone jack. It's always nice when you don't have to go hunting for these things or, dislocate a shoulder trying to plug something in. Speaking of headphones, the Delta Studio Premium headset was found hanging in the shoulder area of the seat. I describe these headphones as medium grade. They are clearly a good step above the cheap headphones you get with certain airlines like Hawaiian or LATAM, but they're not premium grade, which to be honest was a little bit disappointing. I think they are good enough to get by with without having to bring your own, but for those who really value premium sound or optimal noise cancellation, you may want to bring your own headphones with an appropriate adapter. I will give Delta credit though for a couple of things regarding the headphones. First, the headphones were not worn down like those sad worn down earmuffs on my recent American Airlines 777 business class flight. That's a very low bar, but apparently something you still have to look out for. Second, the crew did not swoop in and pick them up before landing, which allowed us to enjoy the in-flight entertainment all the way until we needed to get out of our seat. The in-flight entertainment screen spanned 18.5 inches and the screen's definition looked nice and crisp. The touchscreen was very responsive and it was nice having a quality screen with an intuitive interface. After a few flights on LATAM business class and the recent JetBlue Mint flight, all of which had those pixelated potato screens, I definitely was not taking the quality of the screen for granted. The flight tracker had some cool in-flight features and was definitely one of the more interesting flight trackers to play around with. I found the movie and TV show selection to be pretty extensive and ended up going with the Nolan Ryan documentary called Facing Nolan, which I really loved. One thing I do love about the Thompson XL seats is that they have amazing counter space. I love being able to set up a small workstation to get some work done at 30,000 feet, or just have ample room to place bulky items like my DSLR camera, and these seats never disappoint in that regard. Unfortunately, on the other side of the seat, it's a very narrow armrest. In terms of seat storage, you have some decent options. For starters, there is a large space below the counter where you could put your bedding. There's also a compact storage compartment directly underneath the counter, which was surprisingly spacious. In this area, you'll also find a small touch panel strip of seat control buttons. These allow you to easily adjust your seat, lighting, or do not disturb sign while in the lie flat position, which is actually very convenient. And finally, this is also where you can pull out the tray table, which is actually quite large and sturdy. On the counter, you can also find a pop-up mirror and the remote control. The controller will allow you to easily navigate the on-screen options for in-flight entertainment, but you can also use it to turn on a light or call the flight attendant over if you need something. As far as the mirror goes, it felt kind of oddly positioned, but I guess you could use this somewhat of a rear view mirror to check out how stunning you look in the Delta One suite. Behind your shoulder, there's a small storage area that holds a little water bottle and can fit other items if you'd like. I consider these compartments to be the danger zone though, because it's so easy to forget items stored behind you, so I tend to avoid putting things in there that I can't afford to lose. This area is also where you have a special feature light which provides a little bit of ambiance to the seat, which is actually pretty nice. But perhaps the biggest reason why I loved this seat was the extra space in the footwell. So this is one of those business class products that offer bulkhead passengers more space for their feet, which is something I always value a lot. I found it much easier to get comfortable in this seat than I did with my prior Thompson XL experiences, and I'm pretty sure it had to do with the additional legroom, which looks like it's almost double the size of the standard amount. When it came time for dining, I found it interesting that their crew did not issue any menus for drinks or dining, as it's always fun to go through a nice looking menu and contemplate a few different options or maybe even discover new types of cuisine. When Brad asked about getting a drink, they just told him, well, what do you want? Which is not really on par with what you expect when flying a premium lie-flat business class product. However, one reader on my blog did point out that this type of route is not sold as an official Delta One flight, which probably explains why we did not get the full soft product when it came to the dining experience. I ended up choosing the beef sliders that came smothered in cheddar cheese, and I thought the purple taro buns were a unique touch and really liked the flavor of the teriyaki glaze. Overall, I would say that the dining was a very pleasing experience and I really don't have any complaints. When the doors are closed, you have a high level of privacy as you would expect. It's not quite like those extravagant first-class suites that boast towering doors and walls, shielding you from even the most curious of passerby, but still, it makes a big difference. With that said, some people might feel cramped in this suite, and I could see how, since the seat does appear to be a bit confining, but the seat does offer 22.5 inches of width, 45 inches of pitch, and a bed length of about 80 inches. I think the key is to go into this knowing that just because there is a door, you're not going to have a Singapore Suites-like experience. There will be a higher level of privacy, but you won't get that spaciousness that you would get in a true first-class suite. Also keep in mind that the suites on the A350 are more spacious than the A330, so if you're coming from that aircraft, you'll probably notice the difference. I like the look of the cabin aisle when all of the doors were shut. However, I couldn't ignore the fact that some of the doors and walls appeared a little bit worse for wear, almost resembling the battle scars of a well-used company truck. As for the sleeping experience, the bedding is 100% recycled polyester bedding, which is what they replaced their old Weston Heavenly bedding with. Without a mattress pad, I found the seat to be pretty firm, so I sort of wrapped the blanket underneath me for moderate comfort. The pillow was very thick and light years above the pillow issued by Hawaiian Airlines, which helped out a lot with comfort. Ultimately, the bedding setup worked fine for this medium haul flight, but I'm not sure how comfortable I would be in this for a true long haul flight. I also think that from a design perspective, certain things could probably be improved to help the sleeping experience, such as being able to push up the armrest. You might also find the bed to feel low to the ground, although I was already experienced with that, so it wasn't really a big deal to me. I will say that once again, having that extra bulkhead legroom made a huge difference for me. It allowed me to sleep on my side with my legs bent pretty far, which really helped me get into a comfortable position. As for the service on this flight, it was largely on point. I wouldn't say that it stood out like our recent JetBlue Mint flight, but I felt like the crew was very friendly and pretty attentive. The crew on the Hawaiian Airlines flight that took us out to H&L, I'd say they engaged more with us, so I would put them a peg ahead of this crew, but still no major complaints with the Delta crew. After getting a little bit of rest, we arrived in Seattle. After landing, we did have a layover of about 3 hours, which we spent at the Seattle Delta Sky Club, and I really liked that lounge. It's very spacious, they had some good food, and we just went up to the second level where there was basically nobody else and got to just kind of hang out and relax by ourselves for a couple of hours. And finally, we then boarded our first class flight from Seattle to Phoenix and made the flight back to Arizona, back home. And I really think it's one of the most scenic routes that you can fly. You get to go over beautiful spots like Zion National Park, the Grand Canyon, and just see a lot of beautiful scenery. Definitely you want to get a window seat if you're heading on this route. Overall, I really enjoyed my first flight with Delta One Suites. The key for me was sitting in the bulkhead and getting that extra leg room, as I think that made all the difference when it came to the level of comfort I experienced. I was a little bit underwhelmed with some of the experience, like not having a dining or drink menu, no amenity kit, and the quality of the headphones, but for all of the things that really mattered, like the dining and the service, I feel like Delta mostly delivered at a pretty high level.